So if you'll turn in your bulletin, page 6, Psalm 142. This is a maskil of David when he was in the cave, a prayer. With my voice I cry out to the Lord. With my voice I plead for mercy to the Lord. I pour out my complaint before him. I tell my trouble before him. When my spirit faints within me, you know my way. In the path where I walk, they have hidden a trap for me. Look to the right and see. There is none who takes notice of me. No refuge remains to me. No one cares for my soul. I cry to you, O Lord. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Attend to my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Bring me out of prison, that I may give thanks to your name. The righteous will surround me. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
All right, we'll see if this is any better than the last time I was up here. What we've been doing this fall, this summer, that was not a joke. That was I'm terrible this morning. I don't know what's happening. Jesus, be kind. What we have been doing this summer is we're looking at the Psalms, and we're looking at them in the hopes that they would teach us how to pray. And we've been saying every week is the reason why we're doing this is because there's something innate in the human heart that longs for transcendence and beauty and meaning and satisfaction at an ultimate level. And the problem is we go out there and we try to satisfy and experience those things, and it doesn't work. It leaves us frustrated. It leaves us exhausted. It leaves us addicted. And so the Psalms come along and they invite us to a different path. They say, okay, if you want to experience transcendence and meaning and satisfaction, all the things that a human heart longs for, the way that you do that is by bringing all of who you are to the true and living God. That's essentially what prayer is it's bringing all of you, not the cleaned up, manicured, churchified version of you, but the real, raw, messy you to the presence of the real and living and true God. And so we're going to look at Psalm 142 in the hopes that it would teach us how to pray our loneliness. There's a fascinating paradox of what it feels like to live in our modern context, because our modern world, we are more connected than at any other point in human history. We are more digitally and globally connected and networked than ever, and simultaneously, we feel more disconnected and more lonely than at any other point in human history. And there's so much research out there. There's so many articles and surveys and there's podcasts, there's books. There's so much stuff that's talking about this kind of the loneliness that we are experiencing across the board right now. I'll give you two quick data points to consider. In 2021, there was a study that came out that revealed that fewer than half of the men that participated in the survey said that they were satisfied with the amount of relationships, the amount of close relationships that they had. Fewer than half of the men said they were lonely. And 15% of the people that participated in the survey said that they had no close friends at all. 15%, which, by the way, that number, which came out, what was that, 2021? That was a 5-fold increase than the same survey that was done in 1990. 5 times, this is the trajectory that we're moving in. More loneliness, more feeling of disconnection. Here's another study that I read about. In 2022, there's a study that came out that was tracking the amount of time, the amount of actual hours that Americans spend just hanging out, face-to-face, socializing, chilling, chillaxing. And it said that from 2003 to 2022, the average hours that Americans spend face-to-face hanging out has declined 30%. With teenagers being the biggest dramatic shift, that their time hanging out with each other has decreased 45%. It's such a global phenomenon that even Britain and Japan have appointed ministers of loneliness. That is their job title. It's an official public office, minister of loneliness, to raise awareness and to counteract the loneliness that everybody's feeling. And you know, I could cite all this research, all this data, blah, 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 but you don't need the research to feel it. You and I feel it. I have heard so many people say to me something like, I still haven't found like my friend group yet. Like I haven't found my people. We all want to be on the show Friends. We all want to have like that group of people or a place where you belong, where you fit in, where people know you. I've heard couples tell me, you know, we are just looking for another couple to be like couples friends with. We just want one couple friend. We can feel lonely at school. We can feel lonely in our marriage. We can feel lonely at work, where it just feels like nobody gets you. Nobody gets like the unique pressures or burdens that you feel in your workplace. We can feel lonely at church. You know, you can show up into a room like this and feel, hey, I'm the outsider. Everybody else has their friends. Everybody else is connected. This is just community where everybody loves each other and knows everybody. And I'm the oddball. Nobody knows me. And I want you to hear me say, we all feel that way. It's not just you. But this is why it's a big deal. This is the reason why loneliness is everybody's talking about it. There's podcasts and books and articles, all this stuff. The reason why everybody's talking about it is because it's literally killing us. There's other research out there that says when a human being is socially disconnected from other human beings, that impacts their physical health. I read one thing that said, social disconnection correlates to an increased risk in premature death, comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. Somebody came up to me after the 9 o'clock service and said that they had just read an article that came out recently linking social disconnection to a rise in dementia. There is, the U.S. Surgeon General issued a 71-page advisory in 2023 declaring loneliness as a public health epidemic. So we all feel this, and it's not good. So what do we do? Psalm 142 is a great place to start the conversation, because Psalm 142 shows us how to process and to pray our loneliness. But before we can really process it, we need to understand what it is. So I want to talk about loneliness by giving you 3 word pictures this morning, 3 images. Here they are. Loneliness is a clue. Loneliness is a carrot. And loneliness is a key. Loneliness is a clue and a carrot and a key. Let's talk about what I mean by that. How is loneliness a clue? What does that mean? Well, if you look at the psalm, the very first, the thing that's called the superscription, what comes before verse 1, you find out that David wrote this psalm when he was in a cave. He's by himself in a dark, cold, Middle Eastern cave. Why is he hanging out in a cave? Here's why. Well, the Bible tells us because at this point in his life, he was on the run from the king that was in power, a guy named Saul, who didn't like David, who felt threatened by David. So Saul had formed this fully armed militia to track David down and to murder him. And so David is literally running for his life. He's hiding in any hole, any crevice that he can find himself so that he can be protected and be safe. And so look at a couple of these verses where you can see how threatened he feels, how alone he feels. Verse 3, in the path where I walk, they have hidden a trap for me. Meaning there are people out there that are setting traps like you would set a trap for a rat or a mice. They're trying to kill me. Verse 6, deliver me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Pursuer is probably a better translation than the word persecutor, because that's the idea of what David means here. There are people that are pursuing me. They are tracking my movements. They are hunting me down. And then look at verse 7. He throws in this image, which I think is interesting. He says, bring me out of prison. It's this metaphor of saying, I am trapped. I am in hiding. I'm cut off from normal life. So that's the context. Now, you and I don't have armies chasing after us, most likely, but I'm guessing you can resonate with what it feels like. Look at what he says in verse 4. This is maybe the most honest, painful verse in the whole deal. He says, look to the right and see, there is none who takes notice of me. No refuge remains to me. No one cares for my soul. Now, my guess is we all know that feeling to some degree, where you feel like you're looking around and you're saying, does anyone even care about me? Where you feel unseen, you feel no one checks in on me. If I were to go, if I were to die, would anyone care? Would anyone even notice? This is the experience of utter, just feeling utterly alone in the world. And it's, even though it's a normal human experience, it is incredibly painful. I mean, look what he says in verse 3. My spirit faints within me. And then verse 6, I am brought very low. Now, as painful as loneliness is, it does reveal something. Loneliness is a clue. It is an indicator that is pointing to a bigger reality. You want to know what it is? Here's the bigger reality that loneliness is a clue towards. We all deeply want to be known. We want to belong. David Brooks, a famous writer, author, journalist, he wrote a book a number of years ago called The Social Animal. And one of the points that he's making in that book is that human beings are not fundamentally rational creatures, though we are, but we are fundamentally relational creatures. And I think he's right. Human beings are fundamentally relational. And as Christians, we say, okay, the reason why that is because we're made in the image of God. And God is fundamentally relational. As Christians, we don't believe that God is this impersonal force that's just kind of out there in the universe somewhere. We don't believe that God is this solitary, lonely person floating around in heaven. We believe that God is one person, one God in three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which means from all of eternity, God has been and is always and forever will be relational, communal, loving, connected. So to be made in the image of a God like that, that is why relationships are hardwired into our DNA. It's just baked into who we are as people. And if you remove relationships, we start to deteriorate. We start to fall apart. Which shows you that loneliness, if you are lonely, it is not an indication that something is wrong with you. It's an indication that something is beautiful about you. You want connection. You're wired that way. You were created that way. What's difficult, though, is that in our modern context, the way that our modern society is just set up now, just the way it is, makes relationships incredibly difficult. It is an uphill climb to try to even connect with other people. You just think about the world we're in. A lot of our work is done remote now. We spend a ton of time just in the car, getting from point A to point B. We buy our groceries online. We do Amazon stuff just shows up. We do online church. We basically created a world in which we don't have to actually interact with human beings. We can just have stuff delivered to our front porch, shows up on our laptop, whatever. And you start to think about in terms of how disconnected we are when we are out in public, when we do go out with other people, we usually put our earbuds in. And have you ever had this experience where you're actually with people? You're at a meal together. You're hanging out, grabbing drinks, and you look around and everybody's just on their phone? We're together, but we're not present. But what all this shows you, this loneliness that we feel, it's like a light on the dashboard that's indicating a part of a place where you can belong. About you are hardwired for relationships. You long to be a part of a place where you can belong. That's the clue. So how is loneliness a carrot? What does that mean? Well, you know how they dangle carrots out in front of animals to incentivize them, to motivate them to go into a certain direction or the other? That's the idea, that loneliness has this incentivizing energy to it. It pulls you one direction or to the other. What happens with David? He's experiencing this loneliness. He's looking around. Nobody cares about me. I'm just here all by myself. And what does that energy compel him to do? Look at verse 1. With my voice, I cry out to the Lord. With my voice, I plead for mercy to the Lord. I pour out my complaint before him. I tell my trouble before him. I love that image of verse 2 of pouring out his complaint before the Lord, because he is not like the stereotypical American male that just stuffs and bottles up all of our feelings deep down. He's not doing that. He is pouring it out, which shows you his feeling of loneliness is making him move outward, seeking connection. He is moving towards another person. He's moving towards God. I'm sharing my voice with you, my complaint with you. I'm longing for mercy. I'm pouring out my heart before you. His loneliness is moving him outside of himself, towards relationship, towards intimacy, towards connection. That's the carrot. But loneliness, the carrot can also go in the opposite direction. There's an energy to loneliness that will either pull you outside of yourself where you seek relationships, or actually it can draw you more inward too. And it can cause you to go deeper into the cave where you seek perceived safety of being isolated. There's a movie that came out in 2009 starring George Clooney called Up in the Air. I don't know if you saw this. I saw this movie in the theater, and I've been processing it for 16 years. It's so profound, it's so rich, and heartbreaking, and thought-provoking. It's a lot. But basically, George Clooney plays a character who's a motivational speaker. And he goes around, he flies around from one city to the other, these conferences and these different spaces where he's just in a room in front of people, and he gives this spiel. He has this spiel at every place he goes to, and his spiel is, it's a fun word, spiel, is he says, picture that you're wearing a backpack. See that backpack? Feel it. Okay, it's nice. You can move around, easy. Let's start putting every possession that you own into the backpack. So let's put your compact disc collection. This is 2009 when it came out. Let's put your DVD collection in the backpack. Let's put everything you own, your clothes, your books, your couches, your car. Oh, it's starting to get heavy. Okay, you feel all the weight of that. It's so hard to move around with all those possessions now. He says, okay, take it all out, empty the bag, and now let's start to put in the people in your life, all of your relationships, everything from the acquaintances to the people that you just kind of nod to in your neighborhood, to your most deepest, most intimate friendships, family members. I'm going to read you the script. Here's what he says. Feel the weight of that bag. Make no mistake, your relationships are the heaviest components of your life. Feel the straps cutting into your shoulders. All those negotiations and arguments and secrets and compromises. Now set that bag down. You don't need to carry all that weight. Some animals were meant to carry each other, to live symbiotically over a lifetime, star-crossed lovers. monogamous swans. We are not one of those animals. The slower we move, the faster we die. We are not swans. We're sharks. Now, he knows relationships are the biggest, heaviest, most painful, costliest components of our lives. And so he says, his conclusion is, because that's the case, get rid of them. They will weigh you down. They will slow you down. They will burden you. They will break your heart. Get rid of relationships. Now, maybe some of you subscribe to that way of thinking or some version of that. But to some degree, we feel that. We feel like, yeah, relationships are costly. They're demanding. And so we're going to start moving deeper into the cave. We're going to isolate. And the way that we do that, it takes a lot of different forms. For a lot of us, it's just a refusal to risk. I'm not going to risk. I will not show up at the thing. I'm not going to go to the party. I'm not going to go to the event. I'm not going to go to church. I'm not going to go to the community group. I will play it safe. I will stay in my own cocoon, my own shell. I will not interact with the people. It's too risky. It's too awkward. It's too uncomfortable. Or if I show up, maybe I'll show up, but I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to let anybody in. I'm going to play it safe. No risk. Or for a lot of us, what we do, instead of just not risking, I mean, this is a version of that, but what we do is we basically just harden our own heart and we just say, I'm just going to be apathetic. I'm going to be indifferent to people and relationships. I just don't care. They don't care about me. I don't care about them. Whatever. I don't care. For a lot of us, though, my guess is the way that we just retreat deeper into our caves is that we just prioritize productivity over people, where efficiency in getting stuff done matters more than the relationships in our lives. So it's like, hey, I'd love to connect with you. You have no idea how much stuff is on my plate right now. You do not understand how behind I am on email. And so, people become just like real people with real needs are intrusions into your workflow. They're annoying. Get away from me. This is what matters. You are not what matters. Email is what matters. And so we prioritize productivity, getting stuff done over people. What are we doing? We're choosing isolation. We're retreating into the cave. And what we're basically doing, whatever path we do, if we follow George Clooney's advice from that movie, what we're basically doing is we're trying to shut down a part of our heart where one of our most core, deepest desires resides. It's like we're trying to put an epidural to our soul. An epidural is just a nerve block to prevent pain. It's like I'm going to block any people so that I don't feel any pain. And you can do that. You can shut down your heart to protect it. But it is not without its own consequences. And this is where we have to talk about a famous quote from our good friend C.S. Lewis. I'm sure many of you have heard it before, but if you haven't heard it, buckle up because it's intense. But I put this in your bulletin, the front page of your bulletin. But here's what C.S. Lewis wrote. He says, quote, "To love at all is to be vulnerable. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything in your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully around with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable." Loneliness is a clue. It shows you that you are hardwired for connection and for relationships. Loneliness is a carrot. It can lead you outside of yourself towards connection, towards relationship, or it can lead you deeper inside of yourself into isolation and withdrawal. Last thing, loneliness is a key. It's a key. I think this is fascinating. If you look at verse 4, David looks around and he says, "No refuge remains for me." Refuge is this idea about having a safe place. A refuge is a place like home. It's where you feel protected. It's where you feel comfortable. It's where you feel safe. And he's saying, I'm looking around. There's no refuge. No refuge. And then in the very next verse, did you notice this? Verse 5. He says, "I cry to you, O Lord, and I say, you are my refuge." Isn't that fascinating? He's looking around saying, there is no refuge, no safe space. Oh, wait a second. God, you are my safe space. And notice he doesn't say, God, one day you're going to provide a safe space. You're going to provide a refuge for me. He says, no. You are the refuge for me. He is looking around at just a hellscape of carnage where no one likes him. No one has befriended him. He's all by himself. And he feels in the Lord's presence he's at home. It reminds me of one of these lines that we sing in one of the hymns that we sing here where the line goes, "Foes may hate and friends disown me. Show thy face and all is bright." Your foes can hate you, your friends can disown you, but if the Lord shows his face in the midst of all that darkness, it'll still be bright. The Lord's nearness, the Lord's presence in the midst of utter isolation, that actually also gives him confidence, that gives him hope. Look at what he says in verse 7. He says, "The righteous will surround me." It actually gets cut off there. You can see there's one other line that we should have included, but the verse ends, "For you will deal bountifully with me." But isn't that amazing? He is saying, one day, someday, the righteous will surround me. I will be surrounded by people who are like-minded, where I belong, who love me. That is pretty defiant. When he's looking at the circumstances of his life, no friends, no connection, no refuge, no one cares about him, and he says, one day, someday, I'm going to be surrounded by people who love me. The confidence that he receives from the Lord's intimacy and nearness, it's astounding. Here's what's crazy. You and I can have greater confidence than David did because we know something that he really didn't know. We know, centuries later, God sends his son Jesus, who is David's great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson. And Jesus knows what it is like to be totally abandoned by his friends and his family. The moment Jesus was arrested, his closest friends scattered. And he gets strung up on a cross and he dies utterly alone. And he's not just forsaken by his friends and his family, he is forsaken by his God. God forsakes him on the cross. And there is Jesus, and he's not just pouring out his complaint, he is pouring out his very blood. And you know where he gets buried when he is taken down from the cross? He is buried in a cave. You think, oh, that is a terrible story. Why in the world would Jesus experience utter cosmic isolation, loneliness like this? You know why? It is so that you and I never would. So that we would never experience ultimate loneliness, ultimate cut-offness, so that we would always be connected, so that the Lord would always be our refuge, so that the Lord would never, ever, ever forsake us or abandon us because Jesus was forsaken and abandoned in our place. Look at the lengths to which God has done for you. That tells you how much you are loved, which means it's not, okay, I will be loved by the Lord once I finally crawl out of my cave. It's no. He comes and he enters into the cave with us. If that is true, if the gospel is true that Jesus bore all of this in our place because he loves us this much, let me draw out 3 quick implications and then we're done. Implication number 1. If you are here this morning and you really feel the depths of feeling alone, nobody gets me, nobody sees me, nobody understands me, I feel pretty alone in the world, I want you to hear that the Lord is with you, that he is your refuge, even if it doesn't feel like it, because it's still true. I came across this Charles Spurgeon quote this week that I thought was so helpful. The quote goes like this. It says, "Mountains, when in darkness hidden, are as real as in day. And God's love is as true to thee now as it was in thy brightest moments." Makes me think of, I don't know if you've ever been on vacation, you show up, you go to the mountains or something, you show up late, pull up into your Airbnb, it's your first time out there, everything's dark, you can't see anything, and you go out the next morning to have your morning coffee, and oh my goodness, there are the mountains. They were there the night before, you just couldn't see them. They were hidden in darkness. Spurgeon is saying is in your darkest moments where it feels like the Lord is hidden, he's not there, he's not my refuge, he is just as present, he is just as there as if it was the brightest day, you just can't see him. Second implication, no matter how lonely and terribly painful it might feel for you right now in this season, loneliness is not the end of your story. If you are in Christ, verse 7 is a promise that is true for you. One day, someday, the righteous will surround you. You might go through your entire life dissatisfied with the level or the quality of your relationships. I can't find my group, can't find my person, can't find my spouse, can't find the right community, can't find my church. One day, someday, you will be surrounded by an eternal, loving community to which you belong. Third implication. The Church of Jesus is called to be, verse 7, to the people who are in their caves. Meaning, the Church of Jesus is called to be the righteous that surrounds those who feel utterly isolated. The church is not a community that just exists for ourselves. We are to be a safe haven, a refuge for the people who are in their caves too. And so what I want to leave you with is an invitation and a challenge to this week make an intentional move towards another human being. Even if you feel like you are yourself deep in the cave, great. No one's exempt from this invitation. Make an intentional move towards another human being. Maybe it is when you go to Otherlands or you go to Cafe Eclectic and the person's checking you out, you just ask them their name. And you try to remember their name. Or maybe it's when you go to the Croc or you go to the Y or you go to Cycle Bar and the person scans you in, you ask them their name or you ask them how they're doing and you actually pay attention to the answer. Maybe it is you inviting somebody in this room out to lunch today or out to coffee this week. Whatever it is, that move, if I'm going to move towards this other human being, who knows how the Lord will use it in your life or theirs. It might be the thing that draws you out of your cave. And it might be the thing that draws the other person out of their cave. We are called as the church to surround those who feel utterly alone in the world. Even if we feel lonely too, because we know that the Lord is with us and he is our refuge and our very present help in a time of trouble. Well, consider that an invitation for you this morning. Let me pray. Father, thank you that you meet us in our caves, in our moments of isolation and darkness, that you have not forsaken us or abandoned us, even if it feels like it. That the gospel is true, even if we don't believe it, even if we can't muster the courage or the energy to believe it. You still love us, and you are still for us, and you still join us in our caves. Would that comfort us, and would that motivate us to start making moves towards other people, even in our loneliness? We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.